welcome back to the Young Dad Podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe, just maybe, you finally got a moment to sit down, relax, and listen to your favorite podcast. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Jay, and I'm super excited to be with you once again for another fantastic episode of the show. Before we get into it, let me introduce the guy on the other side of the screen from me. I have a guest who's all about helping men go deeper. And if you thought about that sounding weird, go ahead and pause, rethink your life choices, and then we're going to jump into this right now. So this is Josh, the founder of SCH, so Mensch,
Mensch.
Mensch, okay? North London-based community for men looking to reconnect with purpose, presence, and brotherhood through coaching, men's circles, and modern rites of passage. Josh helps men move from simply functioning to truly fulfilling lives. So with that, we're going to jump in. So make sure you grab your juice box, grab a snack, and let's jump into today's real and honest conversation. And of course, welcome Josh to the show. Josh, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. Really excited to be here.
Of course, I'm excited to have you. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing and how it all started for you.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take you back to the genesis story of what I now do. Of course, it can go all the way back, but I ran like a video focused creative agency in the UK. And I had a young son of about 3 months old. My mum got in kind of like a life-altering car crash. She was in hospital for about 3 months. And within the first few weeks, we kind of didn't know whether she was going to live or die. And during that period of time, with a young baby in our lives, I was kind of going back and forth from hospital whilst also trying to keep my business going. And I came home from work a few weeks in with this kind of glazed look in my eyes and really feeling like heavy and weighed down. And actually the reality is that the reason I was feeling heavy and weighed down had nothing to do with my mum in hospital. It had to do with the same narratives and shit that have been following me around for the last 10 years around work and not feeling enough and a sense of achievement and struggles within my work life. And my wife, with our 3-month-old child in her arms, basically looked at me and said, "You have to do something about this. I don't have the capacity to support you in this manner anymore, and you need help." And that was a real healthy slap around the face for me, because for the previous 10 years of our relationship, she had stopped being my wife and partner and really become my therapist. And that wasn't healthy for either of us. And so the fact that I was a young father now and I was still leaning on her in this capacity because I hadn't created those spaces elsewhere, with everything that was going on, it gave her the opportunity to kind of say, you need other people out there. Like, I don't want to play this role anymore. I need you as the father to our child and as my husband and partner in the life we're building together. So the first thing that happened was I didn't think I needed therapy. Therapy was still quite taboo. I didn't feel like I was on the edge or suicidal, or I had any like really traumatic challenges from childhood or anything like that. But I liked the idea of talking to someone, and I didn't just want it to be focused on work. So I found a local life coach, and as is so often the case with meeting coaches in that kind of capacity, you kind of think you're going in to talk about one thing, and what comes out of it is a million other things as well. And after a year or so of working with her, I think that relationship was coming to a close, and I'd started to really learn a lot about myself. And serendipity introduced me to a man and a community that really changed the trajectory of my life. I met a man called Kenny Mamarella de Cruz, who ran a community called Men Speak, which essentially ran men's circles. And he invited me into one of these circles and found my tribe. I found the space that brought me alive, and I found a place that allowed me to process what was going on for me amongst other men, and found it incredibly empowering. And realized from this experience that actually the thing that I had been searching for in my life was the very thing that I was receiving from this kind of a space. So Kenny started coaching me and eventually ended up becoming a really close friend, and now is my supervisor and mentor with my own community that I built. I'm still in men's groups to this day. As I say, Kenny's still my supervisor. I still very much take the medicine that I'm here to give others. And at some point on that journey, I started Mensch because I realized I'd got to a point where I could give people the very same thing that helped me, and realize there are lots of men out there who have had a similar story of lostness and stuckness and not feeling enough, and needed community and needed support in order to help them become more of the person that they really wanted to be.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting to think because this is a kind of think here. This is an issue that's, not just isolated to one area of people, right? This is a lot of dads I talk to, a lot of people I talk to on the podcast here, whether it's London or UK, or whether it's Australia or United States and across the different 50 states, Canada even, south of the border. I haven't really explored those connections at all, but mostly like European English speaking countries, this is common, right? To where men need other men at the end of the
Yeah,
day. We need
yeah,
each other to connect with, we need each other to talk to. We need that void, that loneliness that we feel to be solved, to be, filled. And I think it's really easy for a lot of men to rely on, the women in their lives
hmm,
to fill those roles for them because it's just easier. You're already there kind of thing, and it's, one less person to try to talk to about all this, about all the things going on upstairs in your head and stuff. So it makes more sense to just keep it at home, keep it with the wife, keep it with the significant other, but not,
yeah.
really expand it beyond that.
Yeah, totally. And I think something that doesn't get spoken about as much is that, there are lots of men out there who are feeling lonely and isolated, and some of them literally don't have friends or don't have parents or don't have partners, and that's a very real experience for a lot of men. But actually there's also a lot of men out there who are like I am and I was, which is I had loving parents, I had a wife, I had a lot of friends. I had some of my closest friends that I could open up to, but none of them could quite meet me how I needed to be met in those moments, because they wanted to help me or rescue me, or I would feel like I could be judged by them, or I could be a burden to them. So what I've learned through the spaces that I then moved into and the ones that I'm now creating for other guys is there's something very special about finding a group of men that can reflect things back to me in a way that I can actually take on and listen and feel supported by or feel called forward by, because there isn't that history there, and that isn't that. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there's a fear of sharing something really vulnerably to men that are in these spaces as well, but there's something very powerful about creating that space away from my life, because it means that I can then go back to the people who are within my life that I care about and approach the same conversation without the kind of neediness or weight that was attached to it before. And I was speaking to someone quite recently, actually, who was very much in a pattern of relying heavily on their closest friends and feeling very weighed down by the fact that they felt like their friends, they weren't as close as they used to be, and that they wanted to be closer. And actually, when we dived into it and explored, when have you not felt like this? Because you've had the same group of friends for years. What they said to me, and this is a young dad, so obviously there's the context of we're busy, we're trying to support and protect and provide for our family. So of course we don't see each other as much as we used to. But he actually said to me really interestingly, the time where he didn't feel like this was when he was part of a CrossFit community, because he had this space away from his friends and his family that was his. that felt like he could be met in that kind of space, how he needed to be met. And then he just felt really nourished by those other relationships. So often when I talk about finding or building community, especially with guys, I encourage them to consider exploring it away from their current circles first, and then seeing what happens where they integrate those worlds from there, as opposed to trying to force it within the circles that they're currently occupying.
Yeah. No, I can see that and I can agree with that. I also think, one of the best ways to get a man like talking and get them like interacting is to get them moving, right? To get the blood flowing, to get an activity
Yeah.
going. So whether that's some kind of sport, whether that's some kind of physical activity of some kind, to engage with that, to really work through, to process. Because men will most often talk when they're also their hands are busy, they're distracted, they're moving their body, they're sweating, they're being physical, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's most important there. But I also agree with what you said, right? Like find a space that's yours outside of like your regular routine stuff, right? And then go and do that thing. It's hard because I there are a lot of men who maybe don't feel like they have that support at home to go and do those things, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's a
they
big thing.
feel bad like leaving the wife and the kids to go and do those things as well. And so they just sacrifice those things and they lose that part of themselves at the same
Completely.
time where they're really having to make an argument or convince, like, let me convince you that I need to go do this, or let me convince you
Hmm.
that I can, or let me earn it, kind of thing. It's rough because like you're needed one place, but you also know you need this. And so you go through those thought patterns of if I go, if I don't, if I go, if I don't,
Hmm.
and it's um it's part of that struggle here.
100%. 100%. That is the biggest challenge and pushback from many, many of the men that I connect to, is this conversation I've had 1,000 times around. I would love to create that space for myself, but I barely have any time right now anyway. I'm up at 6, I do a workout, I then, make the kids breakfast, I then either dropping them off at school or I'm on the rota, and then I'm into work, and then I've got 20 minutes for my lunch, and then I am back at home and it's bath time because I want to be present with my kids during that period, and then it's like I'm knackered and I just want to watch Netflix and then pass out. So the idea of adding another thing into that and justifying that, even though it's just for me, when I could be working harder, earning more money, or I could be spending more time with my kids, or I could be spending more time with my partner. Yeah, it makes loads of sense that people go through that fearful challenge of, I couldn't possibly do that. I couldn't do that. And when I'm with men in this situation, it can sometimes be as simple as, okay, but what's the cost of continuing down the path that you're on? And actually, when you are on your deathbed or your children are older and they're talking about their father and they're saying how he showed up and what they wish he could have done more of, or what they wish he could have done less of, or what they wish they could have seen himself. Often for these young fathers, what they recognize is that the thing they want to give themselves is the very lessons they want their kids to take on for themselves as well. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard, but I think the reason why I'm really fortunate is that whilst there's been a lot of challenge and natural resentments or pushbacks or weighing up, even still for myself, A, got to a place where I needed it, and B, I had a partner who could see I needed it, just like I can now see when she needs it as well.
Yeah. No, it's important to take that time for yourself, right? You gotta take that time for yourself. You gotta have that time for yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
You can't keep giving and giving and giving when you're getting nothing in return. When you get nothing in return, or you just come home, and I think the worst part of all this is when you come home and your wife or your significant other is just grumpy, right? Or they have an
Mm.
attitude, or they're upset, and it makes you feel like, well, I feel bad for even going and doing that in the first place because obviously you had a hard time with the kids, or you had a hard time doing this, or it was rough and I got to go and have fun and you didn't, kind of thing, and I'm feeling good, but now you're upset at me, and I those negative reactions, I think, also turn some men off of what they're doing as well, because they know when they get home they're going to be met with a negative reaction. So it's like, why would I even go if I know I'm going to come home and get, bitched at or complained at, or I'm going to hear about it, or I'm going to be given the silent treatment, or I'm going to be given an attitude or anything like that. And it can definitely be a turn off into going and exploring some of these things like for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it can. And it's very real. And I've experienced my own versions of that myself. A lot of my work is about taking ownership and responsibility and seeing that whilst it can feel a lot of the time like life is happening to me, actually I have a tremendous amount of choice in the life that I'm creating for myself. And so I ask myself, well, if I am going to sacrifice this space that I know I need to recharge myself because it's more important for me to avoid the resentment of my partner, or as you said, because it's more important for me to bring money in right now, or to be at home for bath time, or any of those things, choose it. Actually choose it. Actually say to yourself, no, I am going to choose this. This is what I'm choosing. The reason why many men I meet and many fathers I meet feel the way they feel is because they're not actually choosing it. They're doing it because they feel they have to do it. And then there's inbuilt resentment and sadness and loneliness because it doesn't feel like a powerful choice. And I think so much of my sense of becoming more of myself in this journey from someone who wasn't is recognizing I have so much more choice than I ever credited myself for. So yeah, I mean, it's a big thing, and the other thing I'd say is that resistance, that fear, like if it's there, then two things for me. Number one, it's there to protect you. It's there because it's too uncomfortable to face these things. It's too uncomfortable to face the disappointment or resentment of a partner, or the needs of your child, or the sense of possibility or achievement in striving further in work. Like it's there protecting you from those things. But it also generally means that it is what your heart is asking you to actually step into and do. Like you can't be courageous if you're not scared. And sometimes it's more courageous to give yourself space than it is just to continue going down the path that you're on. And then what's really exciting for me is then when that resistance does flare up, and when the partner does feel disappointed in you, or when the opportunity that you were feared that you feared you may miss out on, you do miss out on, being in that experience with others and processing it, that's where the gold is, because that's where the rubber meets the road. I remember actually near the beginning of me taking more space for myself, I remember, my wife is incredibly supportive of me, and there are flare-ups where resentment builds up in her, and I have to face the difficulty of her feeling disappointed, and it triggers lots of stuff in me about my relationship with her and not wanting to let women down, etc., etc., or let my women down. I remember listening to her, and two things came up. One was being able to really actually truly empathize with what she's saying, because I had the energy where I could actually be with her in that experience. So I didn't try and fix it. I didn't try and resolve it. I didn't try and do the things that I had been trying to do for years with her in that situation. I was just with her and could understand why she felt that way. And then the other thing that came up was putting down some boundaries with love and saying, I need this for myself. And maybe there's a reason why you're feeling resentful, because you can't give yourself the same space that I'm giving myself. And what's your real need under this, beyond the anger and the resentment towards me? Is it that you feel unappreciated? Is it that you need space, that you want to recharge? Actually, that may helped her see that she needs something beyond this, and it's not worth getting in these patterns. So there's more opportunity that comes out of taking space for yourself. I see time and time and time and time again, than just continuing to go down the path that you've been on before.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's worth it. It's worth having that conversation. It's worth, setting those things up, and it's worth talking about them. It's worth getting them out there. I also think there's another element to this too. Is what if you have nobody? What if you don't have those friends? What if you don't have those social connections? Where do you start? Where do you go? Where do you make them? Um, I don't like personally. I don't like making new friends. I don't like making new connections. Like I'll connect with the people I absolutely have to connect with. Outside of that, it's like leave me alone, pretty much. But if I'm connected with you already, then I'm gonna be like, okay, cool. We're already connected. We already know each other. Like we can talk. We can have a good conversation, kind of thing. But outside of that, like I don't want to just go and make friends with a bunch of other grown men, and go and do this thing. So that there's also that element of it too, right? Or those elements of it, not knowing where to go, where to start, and also just not wanting the social connection.
So what's the question underneath that?
Well, I guess really wasn't a question; it was more of a statement. But like, there's those elements in there as well. So I guess how can we work through that? Because I think those are also common
Mm-hmm.
excuses that come along the way as well. Of I don't have anyone, there's no one around. I'm in a new city. I moved here a couple of years ago and I haven't really met
Yeah.
people. I just go
Yeah.
home, I just wake up, I go to work, come home, hang out, go back to work, rinse, repeat. So breaking those cycles or adding this in and finding it. Like where do I find this to add it in? Because it sounds great. Like what you guys are talking about sounds great, but reality is where do I go? How do I find these people? How do I even connect with them? What if they don't, want to connect with me? What if I, interrupt their group that they already got going on?
Are you talking about specifically the men's circles and the men's workspace? Are you talking more about how do I
The circles and
find
like
my community?
both.
Okay, cool. Okay, so a few things here. So I think firstly, when there is fear or resistance, as I just mentioned, that's really normal and really common. And when there are voices in your head that are saying like, this isn't going to be worth it, and I'm not going to enjoy it, and these people probably don't want me in it, and I've got a busy enough life anyway. I think it's really important to step back and recognize that that voice is trying to protect you and keep you in a space that it knows very well. And so I'm just going to assume here, by the way, that we're talking about people that feel like they want to make some sort of shift in their life, but they just don't know where to start, as opposed to the people who are just really happy being introverts and aren't interested in building community for themselves, or like just don't genuinely are very fulfilled and don't need it. I think what is do you agree? Like, let's talk about the people who feel that sense of something isn't right, like this
Yeah,
can't be
because
it.
because not all people, not all men are gonna want to do something like this, right? Some of
Exactly.
them feel like
Yeah.
I'm good, I'm happy, I'm content. But at the same time, you can even counter that argument with, well, we're humans,
So I think the first thing that I want to say is that doesn't have to be men's groups, doesn't have to be men's work, doesn't have to be anything to do with this world. I think if we take it broadly on how can I find spaces where I belong? And then obviously if you think that actually there's something lacking in your life around male fellowship, and you're seeking spaces where you can feel that you belong and that you feel that you're supported, but you're also challenged and called forward, and you're lacking those male dynamics in your life, like check out men's circles and men's work and men's groups and all of that world. So firstly, I want to say noticing that feeling of not enoughness or something isn't right is an incredibly powerful and important space to actually be in. And I think so many of us like to distract ourselves from that because it's really uncomfortable. And distractions can come in the form of work or working out or Netflix or drugs or booze or sex or whatever it is, right? So it's uncomfortable. So if you're feeling that way, that's a normal human experience. And more importantly, it's a very important and special one because it means that there is a part of you that wants something to be different and is asking you to really listen to it and try to make some sort of shift. The second thing is, as I mentioned, the fear or the excuses, as you put it, or the voices in your head that then step in, that is there out of self-protection. That is the designing of your biology and your mind to try and keep you away from the things that we fear most. And within the context of this, that's going to be rejection, judgment, burdening, and it will basically reinforce the very thing that you're trying to move away from. So two things, just really appreciate the fact that you're going through this. It's a very meaningful experience, quite frankly. It sucks, don't get me wrong. It's hard and it sucks, but it's important, and it's this part of you that is asking you to move towards a life that feels more like the one you want. And the second thing is to appreciate and accept that the fears and the judgments that are there are trying to keep you away from it. And so it zones in on the worst things that could happen as opposed to all the other possibilities of what could happen. Once you're able to recognize that, the next thing I would say is take the pressure off of yourself that you need to find the perfect place or community for you with your first adventure into finding this space. So it might be that you find an event or an activity or a person or a group that is interesting to you. It might be fitness, it might be crochet, I don't know what it is. It might be playing soccer, or it might be a men's group. Whatever it is, take the pressure off that has to be the silver bullet. What you're giving yourself is a chance to experiment and to just start exploring and to see what is the community or the space that feels right for me. And then when you find something, generally speaking, I would say just find something that just makes intuitive sense, that you don't have to think that hard about whether it could be right for you to begin with. It just kind of makes sense. It might be to do with a hobby that you had in childhood that you haven't done in ages, or it might be to do with a community where you know someone that actually, whenever you've met them before, they've lit you up, they've filled you with energy. But whatever it is, it's probably going to be the smallest, most obvious answer, which is your first port of call. Don't overthink it. And then from there, really get clear on what support you could give yourself just to take that leap of faith. Maybe it's trying that thing out with a friend, or maybe it's finding someone who can help you be accountable to it. But this is really about taking very small steps. I am someone who likes taking big steps. That's just kind of within my nature. But often when I'm, with the men that I'm kind of helping, it's all about what's the smallest next step to take. So that really helps. And then I think then when you're in the experience itself, once you get to that place, it's really just about noticing, does this environment really light me up? I might be feeling scared in it, and that's normal and okay, but does this feel safe enough? And do I feel like I'm with people that actually they make me feel better about life? And I know it sounds counterintuitive within a men's circle that often what you're talking about are challenges and really difficult things. But for me, the reason why that lit me up is because it made me recognize I'm not alone. everyone has challenges. This thing that I think is just my burden to carry is not mine. And actually, I'm with other people where I can support them as much as feel supported by them. So this feels like purposeful. This isn't just us hanging out. This is us actually helping each other. So I think I'll stop there, but I think they can be some really helpful steps on this quest.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a journey, and I like what you said about how it doesn't always have to be, the first time you go and try it, right? It's not always going to happen on the first try, which sucks because then you got to go and try again, and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying sometimes. But it's really not about that aspect of it. More so, it's just about just going and doing it, right? Going and finding the people, going and finding the community. And, even if that's making one connection with one person, in that first try, that can definitely be enough. Because then you can
Yeah,
go and try new other things, and then you can build your own group out from there, kind of thing. So it can really evolve into a lot of different directions. And it doesn't
completely.
have to be whatever it is set out to be in the first aspect. I think that's the great thing about it. But I also think as humans, we need those connections, right? Like part of human nature is connecting with people. And so part of us needing these things is we need connection. We need to connect with other men, we need to connect with other people. We need to feel that connection on a regular basis to scratch that itch in our brain a little bit, if you will, to just survive, and just to get by without feeling that to battle back against, not without feeling it, but to battle back against like the loneliness,
Hmm.
and the finding more of a sense of self and finding more ways to fill our cup. I think that's a huge part of just our nature as humans. Is we need those things. We have to have them.
100%. And I have been on a quest for purpose and meaning and for much of my life. And I think I had been conditioned that that meant I had to achieve, and I had to achieve things in order to find that. Um, Kind of at the sacrifice of everything else. And now, where I am in life, I recognize that actually what I needed along the way was that sense of connection and belonging and community. That's the key ingredient to purpose and fulfillment and success for me. And there are other elements in there, taking care of my body, and but social connection for me is absolutely at the core. And there are plenty of studies that go to show how important it is for our physical health, not just for our mental health. So, yeah, for those who listen to this, who are those kind of high performing dads who are not just thinking, like, I don't even know if I have time, but they're thinking, well, I could be doing other things that feel more productive. You will be amazed how much more productive you are when you feel like you have that sense of belonging and community around you.
Mhm.
And then for those men who feel like actually group stuff is too much, and actually maybe a first step would be some form of one-on-one connection. Like, I didn't necessarily plan it to be this way, but my first step was finding a coach and working with a coach, a female coach. And then it was from there, after creating that space for myself in a one-on-one capacity, it was then exploring group stuff, and then finding where I can get value from the group space and where I can get value from one-on-one space. And that doesn't have to be a professional coach or therapist. That can just be someone in your life who's a really fucking good listener and you feel energized by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say to the person saying, "Oh, I don't have time," or "I'm gonna miss out on this." I want you to pull up your phone and tell me your screen time,
Mm,
and tell me how many hours you're wasting a
mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Different social medias and things like that, to where you're wasting that time anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You could use it here or you could use it there, kind of thing. And even if you're not comfortable with in person things, there's a lot of great groups online as well. There's some really, really good dad groups on Facebook that I always recommend on the show. The Bluey Dads group is probably my favorite.
The Bluey Dads group. Oh my
Yep,
god.
the
I
Bluey
mean,
Dads group.
Bandit, as in Bluey, as in
Mhm.
Bandit, and Chile, and oh my god, Blue and Big
Yeah,
Bang.
so that's a
I
really,
mean,
really good dads group, and they have some
I'll
other
have to check
subgroups
that
as
out.
well. They have one for gaming. They have one for just like talking about like the heavier stuff.
Wow.
So they have like some subgroups within the big group, and it's really cool to see how much that's grown
Mm,
and expanded and whatnot.
mm,
Like personally, like I've met some really good guys on there that I've connected with and started some fantasy football leagues with that are, some are in Australia, some are in the United States and all over the states, and we connect, and it's really cool when we get together, and football season's around the corner right now at the time of this recording, so
mm.
it's really cool to reconnect, and we all met on this dads group, right?
That's
We
wicked.
we all connected on a post. I posted it, and they all said, I'm in, let's do it, and then it turned into a fantasy football league, and these dudes are really cool. I think we all really look forward to it. We've all gotten to know each other, and it's exciting. It's fun. So there's always different places to start. There's always
Yeah,
somewhere you can start. You just
yeah.
have to start.
Exactly. And what I love in that example that you gave is it comes back to my point about like what's the smallest step? It might be that a men's circle is like that's way too much for me. For me I was an open, curious, heart-led person. So like being in a space where I could be vulnerable, I was really drawn to. But I get that for some guys an in-person experience or even an online experience like that is too much. So you're right. Like find a fantasy football community and via the Bluey Dads group. That sounds perfect. Just
Mhm.
what's the step that would excite you? That's the smallest step into building connection. Take it. I love that.
Yeah, and start with your own interests. Start with your own interests.
Hmm.
I guarantee there's going to be at least 11 other men, 11 other guys who are also interested in the same thing, that want to do that same thing with somebody. Because I think we're all looking for it. We're not talking about it, but we're all looking for it. We're all wanting it. We're all longing for it, and we all want those things in our life. So, well, with that, Josh, before we get into the last little bit of this podcast here, do you have any other things you want to mention from our conversation today before we jump into the dad zone and then the closing, wrapping this thing up, just on the topics we talked about?
Yeah, I think I just want to reinforce the fact that you're not just doing this for yourself. You're not just doing this for yourself. It may feel that way, and you are also doing it for yourself. But I can tell you, I am a better dad, I'm a better husband, I'm a better leader, I'm a better son, I'm a better friend because I have created this very important space for myself to remove those roles and just be me and learn more about what it feels like to just be me. So you aren't just doing this for yourself, and you have an opportunity to create some real positive change on the people and things you care about by actually doing this for yourself.
Absolutely, I love it. All right. Well, let's jump into the dad zone here, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Welcome to the Dad Zone. The Dad Zone is designed to be a little four-question, little fun end of the podcast. Some guests say it's their favorite part of the podcast. They'll skip over the not guests. Some listeners and guests as well say this is their favorite part of the podcast, and they'll skip over the whole show just to get here. So it's a big stage here, big stage. First question in the Dad Zone: does pineapple go on pizza?
Absolutely, it does.
Must be a London thing.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. You get three people. Wait, yeah. This is the order. You get three people, dead or alive, that you want to invite over to a dinner party. Who are you inviting?
Oh, this is great. I would invite. I mean, those of you who are soccer fans, I'm a big Arsenal fan. So I'd invite Ian Wright, who is like up there with David Attenborough as one of the best things this country has ever created. Just like a real big, amazing personality. Mensch means a person of integrity, and he's got a massive heart. So I would have him round for dinner. It was dinner, right?
Yep.
Okay, okay. Yeah, he'd be great value. I would probably also look to invite my papa, who died when I was 15, and he has a very, very special place in my heart. And I often go to him in my imaginary fire pit circle because he made me feel fully loving and accepting of myself whenever I was with him. So it'll be very, very cool to see him again. And the last person who I would have, I mean, I'd probably have Robin Williams.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
What a good time. I feel like everyone
yeah,
always picks a comedian because like you got to have some kind of comedian there.
yeah. I've got this big picture of him at home, and he's just, but he had real depth and soul, and obviously like there was real
Hmm.
tragedy in his life as well. For me, from what I know of him, he's just an amazing guy. So not just for his funniness, but for his big heart. They all have big hearts. That's the thing that connects all these men.
Absolutely. What is your guilty pleasure food? So what's like your food that you're trying to sneak and make sure the kids don't see that you have so that they don't ask for any?
Is my I mean, I don't really hide what I eat from my kids. I would say I honestly don't, but
Do you have a song that you secretly love that you try not to tell your guy friends that you love this song?
oh wow, what a question. Do I have a song that I secretly like? Well, I do tell my friends this, but Moana's my favorite movie, and there's a
Okay.
song in that movie which makes me cry every time I hear it, and it's one of the like tribal drumming ones, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
like there's something about that movie that just really speaks to me. So it would be the Moana soundtrack.
I love it. I love it. Well, Josh, this has been a great conversation. If this conversation struck a chord with you, make sure you guys check out Josh's work over on bemoremens.com. That's BEMOREMENSCH.com. You can also go over there and sign up for his weekly newsletter, book a one-on-one call, or even join one of his in-person men's circles or retreats. Of course, if you are in the North London area, I'm going to pull that up here. And that's going to be it for today's episode of the Young Dad Podcast. A huge thanks again, Josh. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for keeping it honest, raw, and reminding us that brotherhood and presence are essential, not optional. If you enjoyed this, share it with another dad or man in your life who might need the reminder. Don't forget to follow, leave a review, and of course, join us next time for more connection, love, and community. All right, guys, juice box down. See you next week.